So, welcome to a special edition of Propertymark Pulse in association with Rightmove. Today is a big day for those who rent across England, their landlords, and of course, the many agents who work tirelessly to keep the rental sector progressing forwards. So, let's head back to the very start. It was the 11th of September 2024 when the Renters' Rights Bill was introduced by the Labour government to fulfil a manifesto promise. It all very quickly moved through the motions, with Propertymark ensuring the sector was fully represented, and it soon got to the moment of royal assent on the 27th of October 2025, when the Renters' Rights Bill became the Renters' Rights Act. All up, a massive piece of legislation that affects the rental sector. In fact, some of the biggest changes in over 30 years. And from that moment onwards, it's been about understanding the new legislation and what it means in real-world practice. The new law will be implemented in 3 distinct phases, and here we are on day 1, the 1st of May 2026, the day where phase 1 kicks in. And who better to talk us through this than Timothy Douglas, Propertymark's Head of Policy and Campaigns. Timothy, let's go back to the very start. What is the background and history to this update in law, and how did it all actually begin?
Yes, indeed. I mean, the Renters' Rights Act, as a piece of legislation as we have it now, was formed in previous iterations. The last Parliament, the last Conservative government had their version, potentially the first version of these reforms under the Renters Reform Act. That didn't pass, didn't make it through before the previous general election, and therefore the Labour Party committed in their manifesto to take the legislation forward. And barring a few tweaks, the legislation, the proposals have remained quite consistent. And that's largely because the reforms have been talked about for at least 5 years. Propertymark has been on various working groups with the previous government. The previous Conservative government, of course, had their white paper on the private rented sector and their levelling up white paper and reforms as well. So, yeah, long talked about. They've had support from all sides of the political divide, all sides of the House, as it were, in Parliament, and therefore, to some extent, it was only a matter of time when they were going to pee on the statute book.
So today is a massive day, the 1st of May 2026, the moment it all lifts off. What does this mean for letting agents? What do they need to be across, and what do they need to be aware of?
Yeah, so I suppose 1st of May is the date where essentially the UK government have set out what they call phase 1. So the bulk of the tenancy reforms come into play. So from the 1st of May, all tenancies existing and new convert to what they call periodic, open-ended tenancies. The Section 21 process, the so-called no-fault evictions, is removed, can be no longer used for new tenancies going forward. So we're moving to a evidence-based grounds, enhanced Section 8 grounds structure of mandatory and non-mandatory, discretionary grounds. Rents has been under the spotlight, and there probably isn't rent control in the legislation, but there's rent suppression, which some commentators have sort of talked about. So limiting rent increases to once every 12 months and has to be done for a specific process. Yeah, rent in advance has been capped as well to 1 month only before the tenancy commences. And rental bidding has also been banned, or the perception from policymakers that was a thing. So essentially there needs to be an advertised rent, and rent can't, or the bidding can't go above that amount. Negotiation will take place below. And then there's some other, the anti-discrimination measures have come in, and they also extend to Scotland on the 1st of May, and they extend, just to confuse everyone, to Wales on the 1st of June. Pets, there'll be a sort of automatic or a right for tenants to request a pet in England, and landlords can't unreasonably refuse. And of course, we've seen strengthened enforcement. So the UK government have said they've given local authorities more powers, they've beefed up rent repayment orders and everything else like that. So definitely agents, the sector, are under the spotlight, and these are huge changes.
So one of the aspects that agents need to be aware of is the information sheet. What is your advice to help ensure that agents nail this task? Also, there's pretty strict rules, aren't there, about how this is distributed? What do agents need to consider here?
It was in the legislation, it is in the legislation, and the expectation from the UK government is that all existing tenancies, so before the 1st in the old world, must receive the UK government's issued information sheet, and that needs to be issued either by post, printout, or electronically. Not a link, but a PDF by post or email. And the other thing is it needs to be to all tenants named on the tenancy, but there is a window, and that needs to be done by the 31st of May. So there is a window if agents aren't quite there. I think there has been a lot of 2 points conversation around proof of serving and things like that. That's not stipulated in the legislation. Agents need to be able to satisfy themselves that all tenants, as I say, named on tenancy, have received it, and they've got time to do that, and as long as they keep a record of doing so. I think the UK government potentially have been a bit maybe relaxed, a bit casual in their language, where they said the information sheet should be served by landlords even where they're using an agent who manages the property. And I think the phrase manages hasn't been helpful. The UK government haven't necessarily clarified that. But again, I think, our advice on the webinars, if you're sort of let only, then ultimately probably not in that definition of manages. But if you're maybe doing, and rent collection to some extent, but if you're doing, things that look like manages property on behalf of a landlord, it's advisable to also issue it. Or you need to have that conversation, that record of that conversation that you've said to your landlord, no, these are the terms of our business together. As you know, agent landlord, you will need to issue that. But again, that's not stipulated by the UK government. That's agency practice meeting the legislation. We've obviously offered guidance as best as we can, but agents just need to think about their own terms of business relationship with landlords. Where does that manage line sit? And I know it's not ideal for everyone, depending on the size of your portfolio, or you take a belt and braces approach that we're going to issue it to everyone, and it's done.
So, Propertymark have created comprehensive information to assist agents. Can you talk me through what members can find on our website and how we can help them?
Yes, Renters' Rights Act Toolkit is available to members. It's got the FAQs in there, the detailed fact sheets in there. It's got the student guide. It's got guides that you can download for landlords and give to them, quick, easy reads, and some steps that agents can take in their practices. Experienced agents and new agents hopefully can learn from. You can obviously access all the webinars that we've done. There are FAQs that the Lettings Helpline have updated as well, and obviously members have access to that, and our solicitor partners. And more recently, there's all the legal documents as well. So the tenancy agreements, which has the checklist, the ground for a pre-notice for students that you're going to use that ground in the future, and updated fees schedule as well. So yeah, a whole package of sort of advice, but also legal documents as well.
Today is phase 1 of the planned implementation of the Renters' Rights Act. There are, in fact, another 2 phases to come, with the precise dates yet to be available. However, can you talk us through what people need to be aware of moving forwards, especially the aspects of the further 2 phases?
Yeah, and I think firstly, it's fair to say, through Propertymark's lobbying, we pushed the UK government to set out a roadmap and give the sector a significant window for transition to get prepared. And I think to some extent, the UK government have to be given some credit. They've given roughly 5-6 months for the sector to prepare, and they set out that roadmap as well as releasing information when they said they were going to release it. So to some extent, they've done their bit. They've helped us out as best as possible. It could have been, last minute, 4:30 on a Friday. So to some extent, yeah, we've had that roadmap. So phase 1, we've talked about the tenancy reforms. There's 2 other phases. Phase 2, essentially, we were expecting later this year, so late 2026, where the PRS database will start to populate, as it were. And essentially, that's going to be a register of landlords, both the individuals and then their properties in England. And then eventually, it will start to include safety information of the property. So the gas certificate, electrical certificate, etc. And it is, I think, quite an anomaly that all the legislation we have, England is the only UK nation where there isn't an existing landlord registered. Northern Ireland's had a long-standing one, Scotland and Wales, of course, as well. So yeah, England's catching up to that extent. And also we're working with MHCLG and our members to test that and be involved in that process, and also input as to the role of agents in the sector and how they interact with landlords in order to use the database on their behalf. So yeah, continuing to make sure it's fit for purpose. And then 2028, by the time they've done the sort of tendering and onboarding, there will be the landlord ombudsman, which is part of the legislation as well. So regardless of whether a landlord in England uses a letting agent or not, they will need to belong to the new PRS ombudsman, but essentially it's the landlord redress ombudsman scheme. And then phase 3 will be the decent home standard, which is penciled in for 2035, which seems a long way off, but we now know that for England and Wales, the minimum energy efficiency standards have been earmarked to come in from 2030. So the reality is we're not too far away. We're less than 10 years from decent home standards. But I think on the whole, what does that mean? Properties will need to be free of Category 1 hazards under the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, have a degree of thermal comfort, cool in the summer, warm in the winter, and have the Arab's law be able to process of tackling damp and mould as well. But there's a lot more work to come from the UK government on that, so expect some further consultations, engagement leading up to 2035.
So from start to finish, both yourself and your team have been massively engaged with government to help steer this legislation. And to put this into context, these changes are some of the biggest evolutions in over 30 years. What would be your words of wisdom and advice moving forward from here?
I've been always amazed by property agents and letting agents. I think the sector is very durable, and agents who are working in the sector are very flexible and have been able to adapt to significant change before, and they'll be able to adapt to it again. So I think there is a huge amount of knowledge and experience in the sector, and people can adapt. I've always been amazed by that. So I think to some extent it's take a deep breath, use the Propertymark resources, reflect on the changes, have a look at the guides that we've provided. What are you being asked to do? And then try and find processes that you then apply to your business. How can you help and train and support your staff, and have those conversations with landlords to plan the future? So I think it's about not panicking, embracing the change as much as possible, using Propertymark resources to help and support that. And ultimately, we know, we did a webinar early in the year with our colleagues in Scotland and Wales. We know that there has been significant changes there, and rightly or wrongly, agents had to adapt, but they've survived. And actually, Angela, our regional executive in Wales, said that her managed portfolio expanded, nearly 20% when those changes came in. So I think it's about seizing the opportunities, empowering yourself with the knowledge, and going out there to existing landlords, new landlords, that you're the expert and you're the calming voice that's going to lead them through.
Timothy Douglas, Head of Policy and Campaigns at Propertymark, thank you very much for your time. Don't forget you can get full access to our Renters' Rights Toolkit, additional content such as webinars and frequently asked questions, all at propertymark.co.uk, plus your exclusive membership benefit of our membership helpline too. As always, many thanks for listening to Propertymark Pulse in association with Rightmove. You can check in with us at any time at propertymark.co.uk/pulse.